fellow cinephiles, and welcome to the premiere episode of Steve Reviews. My name is Steve Sullivan, and I am a writer and a critic for FilmMonthly.com. I decided to start this channel because I love movies. I have loved movies ever since I was a child. As the story goes, when I was 2, my brother, who is 9 years older than I am, decided that he wanted me to come along with him to see The Empire Strikes Back. My mother, of course, was a little hesitant because I'm 2 years old. There's a good chance I could get fussy or whiny or cry or need to be changed, but my brother was persistent. Finally, after minutes of his begging and pleading, my mother relented, and voila! I went to my first ever movie in the theater, The Empire Strikes Back. Did I cry? No. Did I fuss? No. Did I have to use the bathroom? Not at all. For 2 hours, I sat on my brother's lap and watched what was going on that screen. Did the loud explosions bother me? No. Did anything bother me? It did not. I was transfixed on that screen in that movie. And that was the beginning point of the journey. Now, of course, I don't remember too much about that. Actually, to be honest, I don't remember anything about that experience. I've only had secondhand knowledge from family and friends. But the one that I did have experience with, the movie that completely changed and definitely gave me the absolute love for film, was in 1982. I was 4 years old at the time, and my mother, my aunt, and my cousins and I all went to a drive-in in Kentucky to see E.T. the Extraterrestrial. To this day, that is still one of my favorite movies, and it began an obsession with Reese's Pieces that I still have to this day. Within the next couple of years, I also discovered the Universal horror movies. Now, how did I happen to come across those? There is a gentleman who does a comedic horror themed show that he bases out of Chicago. His name is Svengoolie. Svengoolie used to be on a Chicago channel that I got rather easily, surprisingly, in the small town in southwest Lower Michigan that I'm from. And I love Svengoolie. His comedy was over the top and goofy, and sometimes the jokes were bad, but that's what made it entertaining. And more importantly, he played all of the classic Universal horror movies. Dracula, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, The Wolfman, The Mummy, The Invisible Man, Creature from the Black Lagoon. Fell in love with them from the moment I watched them, to the point where when I was in 2nd grade at my elementary school, in the library they had these huge hardback books with lots of pictures, very few words and lots of pictures of the classic Universal horror movies. And that is the only thing that I would ever rent from that library. And my fellow students, even years later, when I would run into them, they used to call me Monster Man. Took that as a badge of honor, and I loved the designation. Now, throughout the rest of my childhood and for most of my early teen years, I'd looked at movies strictly as a means of entertainment. Just a way for you to take an hour and a half to 2 hours and go relax, unwind, and just go into another world. And sometimes that's good. You know, if real life is hitting you hard, you want to escape even for a little bit, you go see a movie and just eat some popcorn, some candy, have something to drink, relax for a while. But that started to change in 1993. I was 15 at the time and had the opportunity to see a movie called Philadelphia. Philadelphia, starring Tom Hanks and directed by the late Jonathan Demme, was a real eye-opener for me. I started to slowly, as the movie went on, realize that, hey, you can actually tell real stories. You can be informative. You don't just have to be over the top or happy endings or fantasy. You can tell reality-based stories, and you can do them in heartfelt, touching ways. Philadelphia just opened an array of emotions for me. I felt empathy and sadness and anger and frustration and even some small bits of happiness. And at the same time, I also started to notice that, hey, with the right lighting and the right shot selection, you can really transform a movie into something more. I started a long journey there. I know I use the word journey a lot, but that's where I've been. I've been on this journey, and I've had different stops along the way. The next stop was in 1998. The American Film Institute and CBS collaborated on a project where they had actors, directors, producers, cinematographers, agents, anybody that had been involved in the movie industry over the years. They sent them out polls. And after all the polls came back and the votes were tabulated, they had what they considered the definitive list, the top 100 American-made films of all time. Now, the list went from the very beginning of film up until 1997. That list boggled me. When I heard, I was anxiously waiting for that special to be on. As soon as I knew it was on, I got my notebook, I got my pencil, and I was just right there. And I was looking at that screen, and I was ready for it. And I had it all planned out already. I had all the numbers written down. I figured out the right amount of pages, everything, meticulous with it. As the countdown started, I made sure I wrote the name of the movie, what year it came out. I listened to whoever was talking about each individual film. By the time the special was over, I took a look back at the list and I went, this isn't bad. I actually have a decent starting point. I've seen 24 of these movies. But 24 is not enough. If these are the 100 greatest American-made movies of all time, I want to know why. So it became a new mission, a goal, that I would watch all 100 movies on the list. And over the next couple of years, I went through every avenue I could. I went to every video rental place. I talked to friends. I kept an eye on TV and see if they were on. And I was lucky enough that in a little place, a little rental store in South Bend, Indiana, there was a gentleman who had tens of thousands of movies. And he wasn't a chain, he was just one individual who decided that he wanted to open this store up to like-minded folks who were looking for a cinematic experience. The store was called Morris Movie Classics, and they had a deal. You could get 5 movies for 5 days for $5. Morris Movie Classics helped me immeasurably to get to that goal of watching all 100. So within a short period of time, and all the thanks in the world to Morris Movie Classics in South Bend, Indiana, I reached that goal and I was able to watch all 100 movies on the 1998 American Film Institute's 100 Years, 100 Movies list, which came in handy for me in a number of ways. Most importantly so, in 2001, I took a film class at Southwestern Michigan College in Dowagiac, Michigan. And in that film class, my instructor was Professor Tomry, Dr. William Tomry. At the end of the first class, I walked up to him and I introduced myself and I let him know that I had actually seen all 100 movies on the AFI list. He stopped cold for a few seconds, looked at me, and told me that out of all the years that he had been doing film, studying it, writing about it, teaching it, and all of it, and out of all of his friends, former students, he said that I was probably only the 4th or 5th person he'd ever met that had watched all 100. That started a friendship, and an amazing teacher-student relationship. And that friendship still lasts to this day and will always last. And Dr. Tom Rhee, if you watch this, thank you. In 2007, as we skip ahead a little ways, the next events occurred that strengthened my resolve to make film part of my life and part of what I do. That year, my friend Jeff and his wife had moved to Chicago. I had never been to Chicago before, and I thought, well, someday I'm going to have to go and visit him. Well, in 2007, it was the right time, and the reason was we had discovered that director David Lynch was going to be in town to premiere his new movie, Inland Empire. Now, why was Lynch there in person? It wasn't a red carpet event, it wasn't a gala event. He was there because studios, as a whole, looked at his new method of filmmaking. It wasn't 35 millimeter or 70 millimeter, it was more digital. And at the time, that just wasn't something that was being done. And it was not just regular digital like you would expect to see, it was more handheld, more eclectic, like Lynch himself. But no studio really wanted to push that onto anyone. So Lynch finished his film and he took it to different cities across the country. Luckily enough for us, it was going to be right where Jeff had just moved. So we made plans for me to come into town for the weekend, and him and I were going to go see a screening of it, hear David Lynch talk about the film. It was going to be a magnificent experience. Now, why would I go through all this trouble for David Lynch? Well, if we back up a little ways and go back to 2001, that year, thanks to my older brother, once again, who helped me along in this path, he watched Mulholland Drive. And I remember he sent me an email, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the email said, "I just finished watching a really weird movie. I think you'll dig it." And he was right. He was spot on with that. I dug it a lot, to the point where I made sure that I did a review of it for the Southwestern Michigan College newspaper. And something from David Lynch was the first thing that I ever had published. Yes, it was small, it didn't reach a large number of people, but it didn't matter. I saw my name in print. There I am, a film critic. Even thinking back on it now, I can't help but smile. Now, we go back to 2007. Somehow along the way, the wires got crossed and I missed my train stop. I got off at the wrong place and I didn't have a cell phone. So trying to find a payphone downtown Chicago was a nightmare. After a few hours of wandering through downtown Chicago, I found one. I called Jeff, he told me, he's like, "Where are you at?" I told him, "Stay put." He came and got me. Unfortunately though, we had missed our window of opportunity to see this showing of Inland Empire that David Lynch was going to introduce. So we go back to Jeff's apartment, and as he's looking through the Chicago Reader, he sees something that immediately, I look over at him and his eyes just start to widen. It appears as if David Lynch wasn't just in town for Inland Empire. He'd also recently released a book on transcendental meditation, as well as fun little stories about his many works, whether it be in film or the television series Twin Peaks. We got downstairs, we hopped in a cab, and we were hoping that cabbie would push it, and he did, to the point where he almost got us in an accident a couple different times. But he got us to the bookstore at just the right time. As we walked in the doors, we were greeted by someone who worked there telling us, "Wow, you guys just made it in time. We only have enough room in here for 4 more people." And Jeff and I were 2 of those 4 people. Yeah, that place, I'd never seen a bookstore that felt like a can of sardines until then. But we went and we bought a copy of his book, And one thing that we decided as a just in case, hoping maybe if it didn't, no big deal, but possibly we each brought a DVD in case Lynch was going to be signing anything. So we had to wait for about 45 minutes. David came out on stage and was just an incredible person to listen to. I mean, we only listened for maybe half an hour. I could have listened to him all night long. I still could. On some of the DVD and Blu-ray extras of his movies, there's snippets. Well, I shouldn't say snippets. They're like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. I can sit there and watch it just as much as I can watch any movie that he'd done. When he finished speaking, it was announced that he was going to be signing his book and one other item. Absolutely perfect. Jeff and I looked at each other gleefully, I may add, and voila. We met David Lynch. He not only signed the book on Transcendental Meditation, but my DVD slipcover of his short films. And I also got a picture. I don't think, for as long as I live, I will ever take another picture as glorious as that one. It's Lynch's assistant standing up. David is sitting in a chair. He's leaning in. I'm leaning toward, and Jeff is in the picture, is kind of leaned over as well. And that picture, I put on Facebook a number of times. I look at that picture and I can't help but smile hugely every time I see it. We walk out, and I was just rendered without the capability of speech. I couldn't talk. I could barely make human noises. All I could do was just sit there with a Joker grin and just giggle and just almost like Jeff called his wife, and I believe his exact phrase to his wife was that I was giddy as a schoolgirl. And I will not argue that. I absolutely was. I was so gleeful and joyful, and if there was anything that just made me think, I want to do this forever, it was meeting David Lynch. And here I am today. One more step in my journey toward being a film critic. Now, I live in a small town, and I thought, what's one way that I can get my reviews out there, get my means out there? Well, I mean, I've been writing for FilmMonthly.com since 2011, but YouTube is worldwide, and I hope that in the days, weeks, months, hopefully years to come, I will be able to be a means of entertainment, hopefully at some point, maybe even educational. And I just hope that we can have fun together, you and I, that we can go along this path, we can enjoy every moment of it, and we can look at things seriously. We can look at things with a sense of humor. But for this first episode, what I wanted to do is just introduce who I am, what I'm about, and my mission statement, what I hope to do with this channel. And so, thank you for joining me for this first episode. I guarantee that the rest of them are not going to be just long and winding history lessons about your humble narrator, as it will be. I love this job. I love what I do, and I want to continue to do it for life. And I hope that I can bring even the smallest bit of entertainment to you, the YouTube audience. So, thank you for joining me on this first episode. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Comment down below. If you have any ideas of what you'd like to see me review, any specific movies or topics that you would like me to discuss, please write in the comments below. I will definitely read as many, if not all of them, that I can, and I will definitely take them under consideration. The next episode, I will be talking to you about the 2018 Academy Awards and why this is one of the most history-making in all of the Academy's 90 years. So, once again, I want to thank you for joining me, and until we meet again, have a beautiful day and good journey.